And let's go ahead and unzip it and take a look at what's inside. Wow, really nice. Before I get into the controller, let's take a look at the accessories that come with the DualSense Edge controller. The first thing you see here is a nice braided cable, feels very nice and good quality. So the next thing we see here is quite interesting. It's a cool little lock box that connects your controller. This is going to prevent the cable from coming loose if you set it in the lock position. And now we're looking at some additional thumbsticks. You have two short thumbsticks on the top, and then you have two long dome thumbsticks on the bottom. And finally, they do provide you with two additional paddles here. And they are made out of metal. They feel cold to the touch, so I'm pretty sure they are metal. And now let's get to the main event, the DualSense Edge controller. But before we move forward, I did find these two smaller paddles on the bottom below the controller when I lifted it. So that means you'll be able to run either these smaller paddles or these longer paddles on the back, depending on your playing preference. So you do have some options here when it comes to the back paddle. Now looking at the back of the controller, this is where the paddles get inserted to. So there's only two places to put in the paddle. So that means that you can only run this controller with two paddles, not four like some of the other custom PS5 controllers. Like the SCUF Reflex FPS you see here, that actually has four paddles on it. So if you guys are curious to see whether PlayStation's DualSense Edge controller is better than the SCUF Reflex, then make sure to subscribe, as I will be putting out a full comparison video where I'll tell you which controller is better. Now, my initial impressions of the DualSense Edge controller is that it's quite heavy. I'm not sure exactly what they put in here, but it does have some weight to it. So keep that in mind if you are buying this. It's probably got the rumbles in there and all that. Whereas something like the SCUF Reflex, you can actually remove the rumbles. This has everything in there. So all the extra features do add some weight to the PS5 controller here. Now, in terms of the aesthetics, it does look pretty good with this white and black scheme. However, I'm not a fan of this glossy black faceplate you see right here. It's going to be prone to fingerprints and all that, and it just makes the controller look a little bit cheap. That's just my opinion. They should have gone with like a matte black or something like that. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the features which make this DualSense Edge controller special. Right here in the front, you have these two little things that do look like paddles, but they're actually not paddles. They're function buttons, and you do press down on them, and the function that they perform is that you can switch profiles between them. So you can have a profile for racing games, FPS shooters, and so on. So you can easily change your profiles on the fly using these function buttons. Now the other difference we see is on this USB-C port. Right next to it, you have these two little holes, and those holes are for this cable housing that it's included to snap onto the controller so that your cable doesn't come loose as you're playing. Now with these L2 and R2 trigger buttons, you do want to have the full range of motion when you're playing things like racing games. However, when you're playing FPS and battle royale games, you do want this actuation to be a little bit shorter so you can fire quickly. So they've included this adjustment here that you can adjust. So let's say I want it a little bit tighter so I don't have to press so much. There you go. Versus this one where you have to go all the way down. This one kind of stops right here. And now for FPS and battle royale games, I recommend you go all the way down, where it's just a quick travel and the trigger will actuate. So yes, this actually feels very good, like it's gonna work well in FPS games, whereas this one on the right is more for like a racing game where you can control the gas, for example. And now these holes right here are where you can insert the paddles, and the paddles do have a little guide. They're gonna guide you into inserting into this hole here, so let's give it a try. Oh wow, and that was interesting. As I was putting in the paddle, there's actually a magnet inside that kind of pulled the paddle in and inserted itself in the right location. And now here we see how the paddle is oriented, and it's actually pretty much horizontal. And then the paddle does come down diagonally a little bit. It's very close to the controller handle, so you can easily reach it with your fingers. So let me give that a try. So I'm actually gonna put in the second paddle. You kind of go in an angle here, and there it is, it just snaps in. It's actually a lot easier to put these paddles versus the SCUF Reflex, I'll tell you that much. All right, so now I'm gonna try out these paddles and let you know how they feel. Okay, this is how I normally hold the controller, and it feels very good. I'm able to reach those paddles and hit them just fine. And these shortened triggers also feel good. This definitely feels like it's gonna be great for when I'm playing Warzone. I can't wait to try it out. But let's go ahead and take out these long paddles and put in the short ones. Let's see how easy or hard it is to remove these paddles. Okay, that was super easy. You just literally have to pull out enough for the magnetic resistance to let go of the paddle. And now this one. There we go. And now let's try these itty bitty paddles and see how those work out. So same thing, they insert easily with the magnetic pull. And these are a bit different. They kind of are almost at a vertical position. So the way you hit them will be a little bit different. Now let's put the other one in. And yeah, it goes right in, no problem. Now let's give this a try. Wow, I'm surprised. These smaller triggers actually feel a little bit better. They're a little bit easier to hit just because my fingertips are already on the paddles the way I hold my controller. Now, if you have smaller hands, that might be a problem. I have bigger hands, but yeah, this feels very good. I'm not quite sure whether I like the longer paddle or the short one right now. And I'm not sure if I like the DualSense Edge paddles or the SCUF Reflex paddles. I guess I'm just gonna try them out when I play Warzone and switch back and forth and see which one I like better. So I'll definitely cover that in my full review video of the DualSense Edge controller. Now, the other thing, of course, with PS5 controllers is more often than not, you wanna change out this right thumbstick if you're playing FPS games to give you a taller dome thumbstick to give you more control, especially if you're using a sniper weapon, for example. So it's very easy, you just kind of pull up and there you go. You can see it's got like these small little teeth that kind of snap in. And now I'll take my taller domed stick and just press down. Just like that. And there we have it. We have a custom thumbstick. It's definitely gonna help out with my FPS and Battle Royale games. And here again, we see the difference between the stock thumbstick on the left and the long dome thumbstick on the right. So switching our focus over to the back, there is this little release button that you slide to the left here. And what that does, it releases the front cover. So I'll turn it over and here we go. So what's the #1 complaint about PS4 and PS5 controllers? So if you've been unfortunate to have stick drift on your controllers, what do? You're pretty much gonna have to buy another controller. But that's a thing of the past with the DualSense Edge controller. So now you can actually lift up this little paddle here and remove the entire stick mechanism and insert a new one that doesn't have stick drift. Sony has finally listened to all its customers and all the complaints about stick drift problems on their controllers. And we see here a solution. You no longer have to replace your entire controller. You can just replace the thumbstick mechanism, pull it right out, buy replacement. As we see here, there's like a quick connect port that's gonna connect right inside the controller here. And it's just a matter of sliding it in and pressing down this lever. And there you go. Stick drift problems gone. This is great news for all the PS4 and PlayStation 5 people out there. Finally a solution to the stick drift problem.